Good evening. Welcome to the Making Lync VDI Work Best in Your Virtualization Environment. My name is Desmond Lee. I am a long-time MCT and MVP based out of Zurich, Switzerland. I have been working with Windows products from day one, if you will, since Active Directory 2000 version in Windows Server 2000 came out, and actively supporting the community in this space, as well as PowerShell, Lync, Exchange, and to some extent System Center, a couple of products. Today the topic revolves around VDI. You must have heard a lot about VDI today. So what happened is that I'm going to focus on the key points of how and what you may want to consider to make Lync work for you in a VDI environment. So without further ado, let's get started. This is the agenda. I will do a quick overview of what VDI is all about, for those who may not know, or just to make sure that we are on the same page, and then walk through the differences that you may have heard or not between terminal service and VDI before moving on and try to identify what kind of challenges we're talking about in RTC. What is RTC? Because Lync is not just chat, it also provides you the possibility of communicating with voice and video. So RTC in essence is real-time communication, and it is a big challenge since a couple of versions ago before today, where we will focus our attention on Lync 2013 with the capabilities of making it work transparently and problem-free, if you will, for you in a VDI environment. And clearly, with this, you have to understand what kind of requirements that need to be fulfilled to make sure that VDI works best for you. Once you have fulfilled that, you've done all your testing, you've gone through everything you need to know, there are always issues. If I tell you that you follow the steps that I outline and point you to all the resources, things will work out of the box, I'm lying. Okay, so I will walk through with you what are the things you need to pay attention to help you have a seamless rollout and deployment. And I'll try to focus the bulk of the time on demonstration. Before I move on, I'd like to do a quick survey. Who doesn't know what Lync is? One, all right. Who has in the past and presently already has implemented Lync, whether the latest version 2013, Lync 2010, or even the previous version, OCS, Office Communication Server 2007 R2? Not many. So what about the rest? You are interested to find out what you can do with Lync if you have not deployed Lync in a VDI environment? Is that right? Okay. In a nutshell, Lync, think of it like Yahoo Messenger, Skype, yeah, and MSN Messenger, which is being replaced slowly, if not already, by Skype. It enables you to communicate using the internet. Next to just IM and presence, meaning you can see whether someone is busy, is available or not, away and stuff like that, you could initiate a video as well as an audio call. So that's in a nutshell what Lync is all about. However, Lync is specifically designed for the enterprises, because you can think of it this way: Skype or Yahoo Messenger or even AOL for our friends from America, they still exist for AOL Messenger. They are not designed for the enterprise. They are more from the consumer side of things. Correct? So we are trying to make use of Lync in an environment that makes most sense for you. And VDI is something that you have heard almost the whole day. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what it is, how it is, but from the perspective, standpoint of Lync in itself. Does it make sense what Lync is now? Right? Good. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt me, because interactive is better so that I know whether you have understood or may have clarity that needs to be questioned, if you will. Okay? So let's move on. In a nutshell, VDI, I like to see it as such. You could access a virtual machine that is running on terminal service now it is called Remote Desktop Services from Microsoft, or even Zen Desktop, if you think of this way, from Citrix, and have it accessed through a suitable protocol such as RDP, Remote Desktop Client, whether it's going to be a desktop, your favorite laptop on the move, or a thin client from Vice, for example, Dell. All this happens simply by making sure that you have remote desktop servers in conjunction with your favorite hypervisor, be it Hyper-V 2012, Hyper-V 2008 R2, or VMware EXXi. You can set up your VM farm and make sure that the VMs are running in the data center for the purpose of being accessed by all these devices on the move or fixed to the desk. The idea is that there are no locally executed components, be it Office or Lync. And the rendering in itself actually comes through the protocol. Microsoft is RDP. You can even think of it from Citrix perspective, the equivalent. Finally, the good thing about having virtual desktop infrastructure is to be able to work with classic non-real-time workloads. That means if you want to work on a document, you're going to start on an Excel, spreadsheet, and things like that, it's easily handled, no problem at all. That's how the display of the changes, if you were to click and make a table in Word, for example, gets rendered on the client. Very important to understand is the difference between terminal service, or RDS now, and VDI. Terminal service is also known as presentation virtualization. Have you heard of this term before? Essentially, RDP, as an example, does nothing more than showing you the changes to the screen, whatever that has been executed in the back end. What are the key points related to terminal service? For instance, it is obviously easy to set up and maintain. You require nothing more than a basic terminal service or RD session host infrastructure. And it is cost effective. Why? You simply need to have a server that is correctly sized, and the count or the density of the number of users that can access the applications. For example, you have not yet rolled out Office 2013. However, you would like your counterparts or your colleagues to be able to access the application without installing it, and you have not considered using AppV, for example, then you can look at terminal service, whereby everything is installed on that one server, and you make the sessions available to users who need access to 2013 Office, as an example. The key point to note is that terminal service, or RDS in itself, is a single shared OS instance. The isolation between users is based on sessions. Think of it this way. In the good old days, where if you have the opportunity to work with mainframes or anything in that era, you actually open up a session and have a time slice of the mainframe machine allocated to you. So terminal service can be thought of it as that way as well. Most importantly, because it is based on a single instance OS, there is no user level customization possible. Why? If, for example, the installation is lacking the proving tools I need in German, in the German language, since the main language we utilize in Zurich, Switzerland is German, but the standard installation happened to be US English, then the changes would require installation and customization on the terminal service session or the server in itself, and it may impact other users should the installation require a reboot. So that is kind of like the not so positive aspect looking at terminal service. Clearly, you would need to make sure that you have the appropriate RDS licenses. Let's jump quickly then to VDI. In contrast with terminal service or RDS, it is not as simple as you think, or at least the vendors set forth to want you to think. Why? It is complex to set up and maintain. It requires not just the RDS or terminal service infrastructure, also the virtualization host of your choice. be it Hyper-V or VMware. On top of that, when we look at it from the cost perspective, you will require sufficient storage, RAM, and so on to support the setup of the appropriately sized VDI infrastructure. Let's take, for example, if you are considering, or before I even say that, who is not using Windows 8? Not using. And the rest are. I'm surprised. Maybe I should have changed my question. Who's using Windows 7? Essentially, this is another perspective. If you think of it this way, you may want to roll out Windows 8, but it's not going to be large scale. Yet, this group of users require modifications. For example, they may need to develop apps for Windows 8. Then, you can consider having VDI set up different virtual machines only for that purpose, but the virtual machine in itself is like a physical box. You need sufficient RAM, assuming 2 gigs suffices based on your planning, and a standard size of 40 gig per hard drive, the virtual hard disk for the C drive and program files and so on. That easily adds up. You have heard quite a bit from the previous sessions today. Then, of course, with this additional cost and investment in terms of resources, you will have the benefit in exchange of the fact that every user will be running an isolated virtual machine that has nothing to do with his neighbor running on the same physical box, Hyper-V, for example. It is per user VM base. Clearly, it goes further in that per user customization is possible through the use of folder redirection and stuff like that, which covers the OS, the applications, and profiles. Bear in mind, after considering all these points, you still have to look at the licenses, where there is an additional component on top of it, virtual desktop access, as far as Microsoft is concerned. So you must make sure that this is adequately covered as well. VDI challenges in real-time communication. As I pointed out earlier, the idea behind a tool or an application like Lync or Skype and comparable products is to be able to allow you to make use of another medium to communicate with your colleagues and your peers. However, nothing beats seeing the person or speaking to the person live if you are far away from each other. Pick up the microphone or your desktop phone or desk side phone, and you can communicate live without paying hefty IDD charges. That would be a real world deployment. However, the problem with running real-time communication in a VDI infrastructure requires one to think a bit differently. Essentially, there are a couple of challenges listed down there, but I'd like to share with you what I've experienced a couple of years ago when we do not have a proper solution. Yet, the company I work with is a financial institution. Because of the need to ensure that compliance, being one of the key importance, security and policies are adhered to, they wanted to go the route of VDI. However, the product from Microsoft at that time was OCS 2007 R2, is not officially supported. There are issues with getting certified devices and drivers, regardless of whether they come from Microsoft. You buy a live cam, which comes with the appropriate drivers, or you have something from Citrix that time. I remember it was Zen Desktop 5, a couple of weeks before they officially released it. And the problem is that, of course, we were able to get the environment working and so on. However, this proof of concept environment gave us a lot of unexpected problems, namely, besides certified device and driver availability, even though we ensure that it comes from Microsoft or Citrix or Logitech for that matter, we had problems the moment we start a video session. The CPU load of the local device hit sky high, and it maintained like 100% throughout until we killed it, or until the entire VM crashed. Therefore, you have to pay attention to things like that. And the situation is made even worse if you were to look at application compatibility. No one can guarantee that everything works nice with one another. That's a reality. In addition, if you were to look at having to deal with in-house developed applications which are poorly or never documented, as you may have heard as well, then you have another challenge. What registry key need to be set or not in order to make sure that that works the way you expect it to work. Otherwise, video will be held up by this application rather than you, and so on. Those things really make running real-time communication applications like Lync a challenge until today. Let's look at why and what are the methods that the IT department, under pressure from the management, you have to deliver it, we have the budget, you have to do it like yesterday. One of the options that was investigated in the past, if you still have Lync server 20 in operation, is to set up the terminal service or RDS server, have a bunch of VMs running on it, and what happened is then a remote desktop client will attempt to make a connection to the Lync server. As you can see, there are two specific paths which are distinct. One of them is signaling, the other one is the media. In a nutshell, that's how Lync operates in the background. Specific paths go direct from the endpoint. Here we have a desktop running RDP protocol to the VM running in the data center. Once the signaling has been established, handshake, hello, thank you, whatever, set up, fine, the actual communication, delivery of the audio as well as the video traffic will be done in a peer-to-peer fashion. That's the basis of how unified communication in Lync operates. So before today, one way to be able to bring audio from a remote VM down to the client that is accessing through RDP is what we call media redirection. I suppose you must have seen this before. So what I'm going to attempt to do is to start RDP or RDC here. I think most of you are familiar with this interface, correct? There's one specific tab that says local resources, remote audio. That's where you could attempt to configure this and tell the system that, hey, I'm connecting to a VM running in the data center in a VDI environment. I would like the audio to be played back locally. Because many a times servers do not have sound cards or they are disabled. Even if they are enabled, it doesn't make sense to play it there. Correct? It doesn't make sense. You want to hear the audio. You want to be able to see it live yourself. This is one way to work against the problem, if you will. And the idea is to be able to make use of the resources and the power, be it CPU or RAM and hard disk space for temporary files if required, to do all the processing. Because Sean today did a very good session that is even too detailed for me and too wild in this respect, where you have to understand a bit about the protocol, how things get encoded, decoded, and stuff like that. You make use of the best resources in order to deliver the best experience. And that is what is happening now with the media redirection option to bring audio locally from afar. Media flows in a peer-to-peer fashion, as I've indicated. There are a couple of pro points we should be looking at. Lower bandwidth consumption, because things don't get ping pong all the way. Things get processed locally. Higher server scalability, because for the very same reason and more. And it's optimal because everything runs locally. There are, of course, the disadvantages. More processing load on access device. If you imagine the example I gave you that was about 5 years ago or so, you do not have the kind of processing power that you enjoy today. And the next generation is going to come. When Intel officially announced the Haswell? Oh, is that? Sorry? Haswell. Okay, correct. Thank you. There you go. So things improve. However, with this methodology, it does help you to go forward to have the experience of the audio and video brought down locally. Bear in mind, we talk about application compatibility issue, not just different applications that you use day in, day out. Potentially, if you still have or do use Skype for other purposes in terms of communication, then this is not going to work. Or work in a way that you will not find acceptable. Because imagine, real-time communication, what do you want to see? You want to see smooth rendering or video. Am I right? You want to hear people speak in a natural fashion and not like some mechanical robots that's trying to translate some sentences and then sound unnatural. Yep. So these are the things. By the way, just sidetrack a bit, for those who may not yet have Lync in place or are considering, Lync 2013 now has the direct possibility of communicating with Skype and vice versa. All you need is some configuration in the background, in the back end, and what we call a Microsoft account or Live ID. Everyone is familiar with Live ID? Yep. So once that is done, you can already communicate with an enterprise that is running Lync 2013 in their infrastructure. So that's a plus point, another motivation for you to consider going forward. That's beside the point of what we are talking about, but I thought it would be worth mentioning. Okay? Let's step back to look at Lync 2010, VDI. How is VDI accomplished? We have here, as an example, a thin client running Windows 7 embedded. The idea is to be able to connect using a display protocol to RDS in the back end, running, in this case, 2008 R2SP1. On top of it, you have a couple of virtual machines. And here it is simplified, just indicating to you that I have Lync as user A being marked or identified as such. The communication of the signaling here, displayed in orange, is going to happen between the Lync client as well as the Lync server. Nothing new there. Similarly, talking about the thin client, it will communicate with the Lync server using signaling, making sure everything is established before he is able to talk to user B that went through the same process. So this is by and large the same idea. Nothing really changed a lot, except the fact that if you want to realize that audio is done properly, the main requirement here in a VDI environment with Lync 2010 is this piece of device here, Lync desktop phone or desk side phone, whatever you would like to call it. What it means is the following. For all you want, if you were to access a VM with Lync 2010 installed in an organization, VDI, backend infrastructure, in order to enjoy the benefits of audio in all its glory and fidelity, you require a desk side IP phone to pair with your client machine. Otherwise, you can forget about it because you will not have the kind of fluidity. Right. How does it work? It simply makes use of what we call USB redirection of the IP phone instead of the RDC connection you open up. Remember, RDC connection is the interface which makes use of RDP protocol in the Microsoft world. And what is RDP protocol? It's a display protocol with some extras thrown in, put it this way. It's not really designed to handle real-time communication traffic. The gist of it is that with VDI, Lync 2010, virtually all the functionality in the Lync world, it is identified as modalities, functionalities, are supported except video and recording. It's not ideal as well. I think all of us would agree that in order to get audio on the desktop in a VDI environment, you need a phone for every user. That could be costly. Yeah. For new implementations, the idea is as well to set up, for example, an environment whereby there is no PBX. All you need to do is to fire up your Lync client and you should be able to use it like your regular telephone, except that it's software-based, powered by software-based communication. Things change in VDI 2013. How does it look like infrastructure-wise? we still have our RDS server running on 2008 R2SP1 or Windows Server 2012 in conjunction with Hyper-V, for example. For example, you build a bunch of VMs and ensure that each of the VM has all applications you require, plus Lync 2013. That is a requirement, Lync 2013. And correspondingly, you should have Lync Server 2013 infrastructure. What that means as well is that for those of you who are still on Lync 2010, you should consider planning for the implementation of Lync 2013, simply because if VDI were to feature on the plan as part of the design of rolling out such a solution, you would require this as an infrastructure. Yes, please.
We are currently deploying Lync 2010 to our VDIs through the use of application virtualization with Microsoft Lync.
Yes.
Is it possible to deploy the Lync client itself without the whole Office suite in Lync with Lync 2013? Because we learned yesterday that it's only possible to use Lync in conjunction with the whole Office suite if you license it through Office 365.
All right. So if I understood your question correctly, or your point is that you are currently rolling out Lync 2010? And the idea is to use AppV.
We are using currently AppV with strategy.
All right, and you want to continue to this strategy, and probably with Office 2010 or 2013, that is where Lync 2013 is part of it, by the way. You would like to continue with AppV, pushing out the product. A very good point. I have to check that out. Officially, there's no statement indicating whether AppV is a viable option to deploy Lync. The point is this: Lync can already work in a VDI environment. However, if you want the kind of performance, right, the natural behavior of how audio and video should be transmitted, then you would have to consider the options provided. Otherwise, Lync can always be used for the standard kind of modalities like IM and chat and desktop sharing and stuff like that. So that is the difference and fine line we need to be clear. However, very good point. I would like to find out and get back to you. Is that okay? Great. So let's move on. You can see that the infrastructure for Lync 2010 VDI is pretty much the same as what I presented moments ago, less one key component. I don't have any t-shirt to give away, but anybody notice what is missing?
Yes, phone.
Exactly. Okay, that too, that's a phone, yes, but it's not. That's phone, key, exactly. So what do you need? You don't need anything except what I've indicated down there, plugin. Officially, the term is VDI plugin for Lync 2013. And I'll demonstrate all these things. So let me get through the theory. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much the same. In other words, no longer is an IP phone required. What you require, though, in its place is to install the Lync VDI plugin on the local machine that would need to access the VM in the VDI infrastructure. In the background, the desktop client in the VM will pair with the VDI plugin on the local machine. That is how it is done. Okay? Entire situation. I'll have one more slide to clarify that. Once the pairing is successful between the Lync full client running to the VM and your local machine that does not have Lync 2013 client except the Lync VDI plugin, everything works as if you have the Lync client installed locally. Yes, please.
This Lync plugin,
yes,
is it running inside the VM in the VDI server, or it's running on the thin client?
No. What happened is the following. On the VM, you install Office 2013, for example, which comes with Lync 2013. It's the full client version. In order to access the VM, typically you use RDP protocol, for example. Yes? Here, the idea is to bring the audio from the VM to the local machine. To enable this, the magic happens. Local machine, you only require the VDI plugin, nothing more. I will explain with the demo. That's why I want to spend more time on that. Yeah, is that good? I prepared hard. That's why I brought my legacy laptop that's still able to run the VMs to show you guys. Good. So this is how the pairing process works. Essentially, you have the remote server and the local machine On top of it, you have RD server setup, as well as starting the communication between the two using the RD client. Local machine, remote server, that's the physical layer. RD client and the RD server goes through the RD protocol in Microsoft world. And on the RD server here, you have Lync running in the VM, the full version. Locally, you have just the plugin. Everything else then happens transparently, pairing. By the way, the plugin works regardless of whether you're running IE or Firefox. I haven't tested Chrome, but I'm quite certain it does, because it's not even Silverlight based. Think of it this way, it is a stripped down version of a full Lync client without the sexy user interface. Yeah? Okay? Great. Talk a lot. Demo. Let me orientate you to the topology that I've set up in order to make things clearer. I have Hyper-V 2010, my old box here. The rest of the components are running as virtual machines, except the RDS, which is installed locally on this laptop. I have a domain controller called, well, the domain is called survivor.net with Active Directory services, certificate services. Naturally, that is a key thing in Lync. Everything is encrypted, whether it's going to happen internally or externally, server between servers to client, clients to clients, everything is encrypted. Yeah. Then we have clearly with Active Directory required DNS. Everything's installed on this particular VM, and I have just a single Lync Server 2013 Standard Edition pool. This being the core infrastructure in order to deploy VDI. By the way, who has attempted or who has experience running terminal service or RDS setup and configuration? Anybody? A couple of you. So if we have time, maybe I can present the last section which I have prepared. Otherwise, we can talk about it outside the session. Great. On this box, I have installed 2012 RDS, where 3 minimum components are required. There are some sleepless nights I spent trying to get this sorted out, but it worked, and I'm going to share with you the tips. Things that have not been added are highlighted in green because they are not essential in a basic setup of an RDS environment in 2012. It's a bit different from 2008 R2 SP1, but the idea behind is the same. What I have here, initially prepared was with Windows 7 SP1, plus something else that I've not yet talked about specifically, version-wise, and the plugin. Windows 7 SP1 plus RDP version 8. I think it has also been mentioned countless times in 1 or 2 of the session, but here I'm going to repeat it for the sake of making sure you understand it. With the plugin, then what happened is I will connect through the RD web interface. Everything gets processed, so to speak, verified, certified, authenticated, and so on. And the 2 virtual machines that I've set up for the purpose of VDI, one of them will fire up, depending. Everything is managed by RDS. Subsequently, I'm logged in, and I can invite people who are running Windows 8 or Windows 2012 as with or without the full version of client, as if you are working it normally. Alternatively, if you have a machine that is still running Windows 7 SP1 being the minimum, and you don't have anything, you don't have the plugin, you don't have a full client, you don't have Office 2013, no problem. We have a very nice component called Lync Web App. That is again another plugin of sorts, not Silverlight, not nothing. It works with all the major browsers today. This is pretty much the environment, background information, and I'm going to run the actual demo now. Good. Let's see if I got everything up. This is my infrastructure. I have my DC running the certificate services and DNS. I have my lonely Lync server standing down there. If you were to set up even for a test environment for adequate performance, consider about, say, 3.5 or 3.5 gigabyte. The more the merrier. And I have 2 VMs I mentioned earlier set up. Now the process goes this way. You should have, for those of you who have worked with the base parenting differencing this, you know the difference in Hyper-V? Yes, no? Yeah, what it means is that you have set up a base VM and then make it read-only, use that as a basis to quickly create differential hard disks. That's the trick I use. That is why you see base for Windows 2008, Windows 7, and the one I've removed for Windows 2012. 2012, exactly. Good. The idea behind RDS is that you create a template for the purpose of generating VMs that you want to populate in the data center running VDI, and I have 2 here. Good. That is the background. What happened is the following as well, to be clarified. As you can see, I'm running the presentation in the VM that I'm going to target. What happened here is that you may see that there seems to be audio as indicated by our favorite volume mixer. However, the moment I start Lync 2013, I have the test version installed incidentally. Fortunately, the license has not yet run up. Otherwise, things will grind to a halt. It will take a while because of the virtualized environment, but it shouldn't take that long. In the background, for those of you who are interested, this is trying to look out for appropriate SRV DNS records to do the name resolution to find out the appropriate pools to connect to. Voila, I'm connected. What is going to happen next is that I'm going to do a quick check and look at audio. We didn't find any audio device. What happened there? I am simply connecting using RDP directly through RDC. Notice anything different in this RDC that may be something out of the ordinary from what you have seen so far if you are not using Windows 8 or Windows 2012? Here. This is one way visually you can check. This is running RDP protocol 8.0. Nevertheless, this is not going through the infrastructure that we have set up to enable the use of the VDI infrastructure. So what I need to do then is the following. I'm going to break the connection here and go through the proper way of accessing my VMs in the VDI infrastructure. I'm going to log in as corporate, say, administrator, which I have Lync enable. It shouldn't take that long to communicate with my, well, essentially the local machine is running the RDS role, as you can see here. I'll come back to that if I have time. Okay, good. Here you can see 4 different collections. Collections essentially is a collection. Collection is essentially a collection of different VMs that you would like to be managed in that collection. 3 times in a row, I think is clear enough. Yeah. What that works now is the following. I need to make a connection and read the warnings. The standard check options, most important for me is audio, is already selected, and I'm going to connect. Pay attention to the status of the message being displayed, securing remote connection. It shouldn't take that long. I have only, because of limited RAM, voila, look at it. It's connecting, redirecting to the destination machine, loading the appropriate virtual machine. So let me just minimize that quickly and orientate you again to this here. I have 2. If I have enough memory and resources on this machine, who knows, this machine will start up instead of this. Yeah, because I only have really limited amount of RAM. You can see here I'm pushing it to the limits with only 8 gig here, but it's sufficient to make this demonstration. Okay, where did my session go? Yes. Good. Look at that. What happened? See any difference? I didn't do anything. I just broke the connection earlier using a typical RDC connection, but once I connect through RD Web, the audio device is recognized. I can even do this if it is loud enough, I hope. One second, I believe I have this muted.
To check your call quality, record a short message after the tone.
That's proof to you that the audio stream is making use of the VDI infrastructure as well as plugin and so on to enable this to be done in a way.
Here's what I've heard.
VDI infrastructure as well as plugin and so on to enable.
If you like what you heard, then you're all set. If not, Check your audio device settings and try again. Goodbye.
She's even telling me that I'm too close to her. She doesn't like that. So sometimes she displays the yellow thing. Yeah, so that makes the whole experience of bringing audio from the VDI environment down to the virtual machine a reality. Any questions so far? Okay, if not, let's move on. I do have about 5 minutes, so cancer. Great. Let's continue with this slide. Demo topology, as explained. Instead of using Windows 7 SP1 with RDP protocol 8 plus the plugin, I was running this on my Windows Server Hyper-V box. I believe I would need to prove it to you just to make sure that things are understood. Here, I do not have Lync. So if I were to type Lync, I do not have a full version of Lync installed. No. Neither do I have anything else except I need to go to Control Panel and show you what I mean by the VDI plugin. Notice here? That's all I have. Nothing more, nothing less. The idea behind this is very simple. The pairing takes place between the VDI plugin locally, goes through the network and talk with the full version of Lync client running the VM, and the media goes in a peer-to-peer fashion subsequently when we have more people coming on board. Make sure that the version synchronizes with each other, something that I will point out again with a slide that I've specifically prepared for that. Good. So far so good? Okay. It's a very quiet audience. Usually I try to motivate people. I know it's getting late, I'm hungry, I want to go to the sushi bar or whatever, so bear with me, 5 minutes more, okay? Requirements, let's do a quick recap. Operating system, anything that is running Windows 7 SP1 and above, Windows 8 or 2012 server preferred if you use that as a workstation. Local machine must have the Lync version, or rather Lync VDI plugin installed, as I've demonstrated to you. Very important as well, the version must match. The VDI plugin version as well as the Lync version. So what do I mean by that? This is the same machine that I will have, or I do have. So Lync is still running now. Help about. You see, this is the version. And if I were to now look at the plugin that I put out earlier, did I already dismiss it? Now, here. So let's see if I can put it side by side. Notice the version, 15.0.4420.10.17. Make sure that you have that synchronized, especially when there are patches or updates, or Microsoft doesn't like me saying that, but it has been accepted by the community. CU updates, that's an infamous way of naming the patches in the Lync space, rather than update number 1, 2, 3 or whatever that the Exchange team utilizes, for example. So make sure that these two are always synchronized. Great. Let's move on. Besides making sure that the versions are correct, you will have to consider what we call the OS bitness. It's not a term, but that's what Microsoft names it. Essentially what it means is that if you were to have Windows 7 or Windows 8 for the matter running 64-bit operating system, make sure that you download the 64-bit version of VDI. That's all. If you run 32-bit, make sure it's 32-bit. Easy, right? As I've indicated, the trick behind all this is RDP protocol 8.0. Without it, you can forget about it. Most importantly, in addition to having the right version of the RDP protocol that comes default as part of Windows 8 and Windows 2012, you have to make sure that play on this computer as well as do not record options are checked. Otherwise, you will see the effect that I've demonstrated right at the beginning, no audio device detected, being one of the possible outcome. And here you can see that persistent bitmap caching is recommended not to be turned on for performance reasons. You will find all these settings in your favorite tab on the RDC connection. A bit more on RDP or the RDC connection 8.0. Whole list of new functionality. Most important that makes most sense to RTC, real-time communication, in Lync 2013 is the point that I've expanded down there. The feature is called Remote FX Media Redirection, but that doesn't mean you need a specific card, graphic card to do that. It's nothing to do with graphics processing, rather how things are being rendered and transported from the VDI infrastructure to the client. This is essential. That's why 8.0 is a must. Of course, you will ask then, what do I do if I do not have Windows 8 or 2012? Simple. I will come back to that, but most importantly, one other key point that you should not forget is on the back end, one minor change needs to be done. That's the first time I mentioned PowerShell today. A very simple, straightforward PowerShell statement to enable the corresponding policies to allow users to make use of the RDP protocol 8.0 to communicate with a VM running in a VDI infrastructure. That must be done. Non-limitations, let's just run through very quickly. One of the favorite features that I want to call out in Lync 2013 is to be able to display multiple videos of attendees. In Lync 2010, it's only one-to-one active speaker switching, but Lync 2013 allows you to have 5 maximum. However, if you were to work with this in a VDI environment, this functionality, despite the fact that it's very popular, is not supported. Hopefully it will be in the future. For those of you who may be using Office 365, I'm sorry, it's not supported at this point in time. There are some limitations as well with these two functionalities. Catch on me and talk about it when we are done. So I will finish this off part by sharing with you what are the things you need to consider. In troubleshooting VDI, ensure that you punch in the correct credentials. That's a no-brainer. Make sure that you do not have a conflict with the RDC connection client running, but this is a moot point. Most of the time when you start one that is attempting to connect to an existing open session, you'll be broken anyway. What that is important though, despite the fact that you believe you have correctly configured and installed VDI plugin, it may be missing, it may be corrupted, and these are the 2 files that you need to replace, and they are found in the Office folder as specified down there, C/program files, etc. Another thing that people commonly forget, when we are talking about VDI, you are making use of the full version of the Lync client running in a VM, sitting somewhere in the VDI infrastructure. So make sure you do not have the full version of Lync client installed locally. Otherwise, things will not work. Good. To sum up, there are cases whereby pairing doesn't work. That means you don't have audio and stuff like that. At the bottom right-hand corner of the Lync client, here, as you can see, a red cross there, telling you that the pairing did not succeed. Everything else works. I am chatting presence, but no audio if you were to start and initiate a conversation using that modality. I already mentioned about bitness. I'm surprised nobody asked me this question, but I'll tell you anyway. In case you're not using my favorite hypervisor, Hyper-V, of course, you have to check with Citrix or VMware to see if this requirement applies to the platform. One more time. Assuming you're running Windows 7 32-bit, you will have to download the VDI 32-bit version if it is in a Microsoft environment. But this setup may not be true. Let's say if you're running Windows 7 64-bit, but you download and install VDI plugin for 32-bit, is still acceptable in a Citrix environment. That, please talk to Citrix. But Microsoft, you have to match. The backend changes I've talked about, and one new patch that came out not too long ago updates the Lync client. What does it mean? I mentioned earlier, if the Lync client has been updated, ensure that the VDI plugin locally matches the version. Otherwise, you have weird version or problems popping up, things like that. Even getting prompts. That's one of the frequently asked questions. With the patch, the additional prompt will go away. Consider bringing this into your infrastructure. This is the bonus bits. Unfortunately, I've already run out of time. So I'm going to jump straight towards the end. Maybe 1-2 questions, please.
So if we want to use thin clients,
Yes?
we must make sure that the thin clients are using Windows to be able to install the plugin, or the plugin can run on thin clients that their internal OS is Linux or something.
Linux is not officially supported. If you have thin clients, you have a couple of selections. I mentioned one earlier, Dell being one of them. So it is running Windows 7 embedded, so it's guaranteed to work. Anything else, I can't say. Okay? Yes, please.
When you said that the versions of the plugin and the client need to match, if you do have to do updates, is your recommendation to update the, like what is the update order? Lync server followed by Lync client followed by plugin, or what order do you follow?
Very good point. Lync, as far as updates are concerned, doesn't necessarily come in a way that if let's say hypothetically you have update 10 being made available, but it could be confined just to the server. There's no updates for the client. Then 2 weeks later, update 12 for the client, and it has nothing to do with the server, so to speak, to correct errors and bugs and so on. Having said that, there are always clear indication in the release notes specify, if you want to have this functionality, for those of you who have deployed Lync 2010, for example, mobility was a very sought after feature. Without CU6 minimum, you can forget about it because it will not work. The same principle and guidelines apply. Make sense? Any last question? I'm already over time. No, you see, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you. My contact information, of course.